Hello, world. This is Game Changer. I'm your host, Black, and our first premiere episode is with State Representative Jason Dawkins. Everyone enjoy.
And similar to like what Tom Brady said in that commercial, Tom versus Tom. If you're going to compete against me, you got to be willing to give up your life. Because I know that's what I have gave up to get here. You know what I mean? So it comes with rewards, but it also comes with, a lot of sacrifices, I should say.
Definitely. Now, I'm really, because I sit here and I just keep going back to this guy that I grew up around, this younger guy, accomplished, who's making, he's really putting meat, he's putting skin in the game. Mm-hmm. You could be, I know I'm jumping the gun, he could be the mayor. I mean, we gotta listen. That's one thing that I was telling my nephew this too earlier. That's one thing that this neighborhood just conditioned you to think. We always thought, like, I actually had to taper myself down. I remember being a kid growing up around here and you playing sports. It seemed like everyone did. Everyone was competing against each other. We competed in everything, whether it be to get girls, to play sports, and it was just a natural thing. I remember actually growing up with guys who were all city, all state, all public athletes. And I'm really like, so what? Check rock.
Mm-hmm. It didn't matter.
Check rock. You like...
And that's how I felt when I got into politics. It was a lot of folks who were more accomplished than me, more polished, more what they would call pedigreed than me. They had the college degrees from these fancy Ivy League schools. They came from a lineage family, And I remember, being in rooms with some of these guys and realizing, oh, this is not going to be that hard, right? Considering the fact where I come from, it was hard to kind of survive these streets. But when you get into a boardroom and you get into some of these back rooms or these political back rooms, I don't know. I think Frankford was a lot harder in terms of like success rate of getting through there. So I knew once I got into politics, I was going to own it, and I was going to work harder than anyone else who was in it, because I knew all folks didn't get there the same way I got there. And if I, had an opportunity to get there, I wasn't going to like spoil that opportunity by, not really showing up. So,
how does State Representative Jason Dawkins sharpen his axe, so we say? Stay sharp.
The good thing about me, there's a lot of young folks who are coming into politics at the same time. And one of the individuals who I come up with is Morgan Cephas, right? So me and Morgan, we're bigger than just colleagues. We started together. And I mean back in 2008 when we was in City Hall.
Say the name again, is Morgan?
Morgan Cephas. She's state rep out in West Philly.
West Philly, okay.
And so me and Morgan started off in city council together. She worked for Councilman Curtis Jones. I worked for Councilwoman Maria Quillon Sanchez. Okay. And we were able to kind of come up and watch the game through the lenses of some of the old folks who were legends in the city, the Shaka Fatahs of the world, the Billy Millers, and some of these like greats who really kind of paved the way, the Dwight Evans of the world, the Chuck Finneys. These are folks who have been in politics for 40 plus years and have the wealth of knowledge that we can only imagine to have. So for us, we kind of come up under some of that leadership of the Curtis Jones Jr.'s and the Al Spivey's, and we really want to apply all of what we have learned from all of our mentors and actually show that we was able to lead. So, a few years in city council, I think we would stay about six. I stayed for 6.5 years. I think Morgan stayed for about the same. She ended up leaving, going to PYN. And when I left, I actually ended up running. So I actually made it to the House before Morgan, and then she followed suit the session after I came. So I came in 2014. She got elected in 2016. And so, I always kind of use the folks that's there, like the Jordan Harrises, the Donna Bullocks, the Joanna McClintons, as my sharp and still theory, because we always play off each other. If we see Jordan in South Philly grinding hard, we're going to say, all right, Who up next, right? Then we see Joanna doing her thing out Southwest. Who up next? See Don out in North Philly. So now you see me up in Frankford. And again, Frankford was not a name that was commonly used in the halls of City Hall or the halls of Harrisburg. So it's really unique to be able to kind of like put Frankfurt on the map in a real positive way versus what it normally is known for. So I'm happy about that
part.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's key for young people and your constituents, the people and you represent, to understand the work, the day-to-day work that you do, the things that you've done, the expungement program you had going just recently. We actually had let's go off expungement. I saw the mandatory minimums, the bringing down the life sentences, like the reform you're doing there, and the people that you're connected with in these communities, because we're talking Alney, we're talking Northwood, we're talking Frankfurt, we're talking Mayfair, Oxford Circle, Wissanomi. Look, we going on and on, and I'm still a kid from Frankfurt, just like you.
Correct.
I'm blown away by this neighborhood, that neighborhood, this section, this. So this is a broad, a lower northeast. This is a broad,
Correct. So my tagline is always moving communities forward, right? So I got chosen to represent 65,000 people across all those neighborhoods that we just named. And when I put my suit and tie on every day, I go out to represent all of them, not just the ones that I'm actually from. And I always want to make that clear, because sometimes folks will make this distinction and say, well, you're from Frankfurt, so Frankfurt seems like they get more resources. That's incorrect. All of my neighborhoods get equal amount of my effort and my time. What's uniquely different about Frankfurt, Frankfurt has a lot of programs already in place that I'm trying to duplicate in other places. And that didn't come by accident. That came from hard work. A young lady by the name of Kimberly Washington, the executive director of the CDC, is someone who me and her started most of these programs in Frankfurt years ago, long before I even thought about running for office.
And when did you start officially?
I started politics in 2008.
2008.
So, we're talking about 10 years of grinding to get to this point. So a lot of the fruit that you see now bearing its fruit is because of the work that we've done a long time ago. So nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything happens because someone had to do the work to get there. And I always try to explain this to folks who want to see their community grow. I said it didn't take 4 years or 2 years to get this way. So it's not going to take 2 to 4 years to fix it. We have to be willing to put in the work, roll up our sleeves. I always was told, if you want to change the world, pick up a broom. And that's how we have to start applying some of our own disciplines into our communities. Because we all have a job. And I always make it very clear, just because I'm the elected state representative does not mean that I'm the one responsible to clean up all of the mess in these communities. That is a unified front that has to always be put forward. And it will never happen with one person doing it, and definitely not one person in government doing it. So all major movements happen outside of government. And when you think back of the Black Panthers movement, and that's relevant on my mind because the movie Black Panthers out, their number one focus was to do social services in the community, feeding people in the community, providing this basic necessities for their people. We have to kind of go back to when a neighborhood was a neighborhood and we looked out for each other. We didn't look at, which one of our neighbors had more than the other, so we should take it. We always wanted to provide for our children, to give them the guidance they needed to grow up and be, products of a well-respected community. That is something that we're trying to put back into all the neighborhoods which I represent, which is why I don't want folks to come out here and try to divide us, talking about, what one neighborhood has that the other one may not have. Let's all get to that point. I made it very clear when I ran for office, I had a young son, and he was in private school, and folks made issue of it. I said, well, why wouldn't I want to give my son the very best? Why wouldn't I want the very best for all the children in which I serve in this community? Same applies for all services to go into these communities. We should want low crime. We should want these guns out of these kids' hands. We should want all the things that's going to actually move the needle forward in a positive way versus in a negative way. We talked a little bit about some of my legislative priorities. I kind of apply this as, my life. So I grew up in this community, and as most folks know, I lost a brother in this community.
Word.
And, that is something that will always stick with you.
That was my old head.
Exactly.
People, so they can understand. That was someone, and let me I don't mean to cut you off, because I love to watch you go and explain, but I'm glad you brought Mick up, because as a kid growing up in this neighborhood, I'm a very, very observant guy. And I was always an observant kid. I was a sponge. I mirrored a lot of guys. I picked up on a lot of stuff people did. I tried to use their strengths. And a lot of people gave me that guidance early on, because like you said, we grew up in a neighborhood where people cared about each other to grab strengths. And Mick was an amazing person, man. I mean, I still can remember it as a kid. I can vividly remember this. This is an individual who was good at everything. I don't think people really can understand that. When you say, you got the neighborhood guy who's the popular guy, but he was humble, he was well spoken, he was charismatic, he was handsome. I remember watching him lift weights on the porch in the neighborhood. I'm thinking, how this little skinny dude can lift all this weight? He could play basketball. He had it, man. And it was like, to see his little brother, a little guy at the time when he passed, grow to be into this powerful young man. It makes me feel good. It's like great things do come out of this neighborhood, and we definitely can and will get back to the space where our high school we went to, home of champions. We got this champion mindset. The neighborhood, we just champion on the great things, and I want to commend you for what you do, because like I said, you take things for granted. I know you, and you know this person, so you got a connection there. But when we talk about the actual work that you're doing, it's phenomenal.
Well, the work is a product of the community, right? So there's not a surprise why I'm leading on some of the criminal justice reform bills in the House. It's because I lived through the era when these bills would have been quite relevant when folks really needed them. So when I introduced the bill 2135, which is around the abolishment of life without parole, folks thought I was insane. Like, how dare you really advocate for folks who, quote unquote, murderers? And I had to remind them, everyone may not be a murderer, and those who are murderers, who am I to judge that person? Who am I to say that they are not worthy of a second chance? I think that's left up to the families, the victims, and to the courts, and to the justice system in which we believe in, the democracy of it all. And the reason I say that, because at some point we forgave my brother's killer, because we had to move on. We had to realize that we weren't going to carry a burden that wasn't going to change the outcome. And a few years after McCall died, which a lot of folks don't know, I have a little brother on my father's side who took someone's life. Wow. And he's in jail now. He's been there since. And this is something that I was able to see on both sides. I had one brother that I buried. I had one brother that I sent off to prison. So it makes you stronger when you're able to kind of go through the experience of others. If you're wise enough to listen and take heed of what you see mistakes being made. I'm not perfect. I'm here by the grace of God only. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I was fortunate not to get caught. I was fortunate that someone told and said, hey, your son may be still outside, the street lights is on, maybe it's time to go inside. So I am very, grateful for the opportunities that I was given, but I wasn't going to waste those opportunities, because I do believe there's a ton of talent in all these communities. I think it's a ton of talent that's being left on the sideline. But again, I don't believe they have the outlets. I don't believe they have the resources. I don't believe they have the mentors to really allow them to grow to their full potential. So the only thing I'm trying to be is a conduit to let folks use me to get to where they're trying to go. And see.
I think our community needs to understand the importance of mentors. I remember growing up, certain stigmas. You thought you were told if I'm not going. I don't want to use that profane language, but you know what I'm getting at, the de-eat. Yeah. I'm not going to de-eat this person, but not understanding that a form of networking and communication and learning from someone who knows more than you is part of the process of greatness.
Well, being humble can go a long way. And it's one of those skills that I think folks should practice more often. I know on a regular basis I got to sit down and I got to humble myself, especially when I feel like things are getting out of control, and I may be right on some things, but I realize that some others may see things differently. Depending on the view that you're at, you may see it differently. So for me, I'm always conscious of making sure that I don't overstep. I'm always conscious that listen more than I talk. I'm always conscious that someone may be having a real feeling about something that I may be doing, or they may have a misunderstanding of what I'm doing. So I always want to be able to kind of hear them out, listen, and then be able to provide what I believe is a description of my intent. Because a lot of times your intent can be different what they heard. So long as you kind of can merge the two things, I think you can move through it. But someone, my grandfather always was one of them individuals we talk about mentors.
Mr. Billy.
But one of the things he taught us, something that Aristotle always said, you are what you repeatedly do. And if you want to be great, you have to continue to be great. And if you want others to be great, you have to show that by example. My grandfather was the example for a lot of young folks in Frankfurt.
Definitely.
Through the sports program or through a mentor program, he always wanted to kind of explain to you and give you a story behind why it is that he does what he does. And for me, it rubbed off. I know he probably didn't always believe I was listening, but a lot of what he was trying to teach us at a young age was something that we were able to capture. Be on time, be courteous, always smile because it's free. Always say hello to folks when you walk them by. The basic mannerisms of just human beings and this human gratitude of being here.
And we grew up here, and I see that. I'm like, we in the same hood, we in the same scenarios. Our parents probably had less, but decency, speaking to people, yes ma'am, thank you sir, manners, normal. Well, this was normal for us.
Correct.
It was normal for us. As wild as we could get at times and things we can get into, but we still had that structure or those values of respecting one another. And
absolutely.
loving one another.
And what we also can continue to do is provide a different style of role models. When we were coming up, the role models of the community was normally the drug dealers.
Definitely.
Normally the folks who probably wasn't putting the best example forward, but that is what we were attracted to because it had the flash. It had all the things that we enjoyed.
Some of those guys had those values too.
I'm not saying they didn't.
They opened the door for the old lady.
No. You can be a gentleman and a gangster.
Exactly.
But what I wanted to be is to take that combination of both. You don't have to not be weak, but still be kind, if that makes sense.
It does.
For me, I wanted to be in a different example. I wanted kids to look and say, why does he wear a suit every day, and question it? Why does his office look different than all the other storefronts on the avenue, and question it? Why is his billboard on the side of that building, and question it? Because we have to start becoming the role model, but we also have to start creating entrepreneurs. That is something that is missing from this discussion around financial literacy and how we can move a lot of the issues we have in the inner city out of the inner city and actually come back into the fold is because economics is tied to violence. Economics is tied to illiteracy. Economics is tied to all the problems we're seeing in this city, but we have to do a better job at creating entrepreneurs to be able to give back and build their communities.
Amen. I'm glad you spoke on that because that was something that I learned too with business training is I got all of these mentors. I got all these people that when I was learning this business, this home business I started, and you were one of the first people who helped me champion that. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Someone who puts the money where the mouth is. When I first started my home business, I think that was 2014. Who was my first initial meeting? Who did I come to say, oh, I need a space to have a little meeting, have my mentors come down and do some speaking? It was you. Mm-hmm. And who gave their office, this same building, the first floor, was you. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. I appreciate that, bro. That's really, that's a true story. But I saw so many different people, all these entrepreneurs from all over the world. Some of them look just like me and you, training and teaching and it was like because I didn't go to a university, but I've always felt like that was a part of my life where I was getting some kind of training that you're gonna need some type of business training, some type of, and I had to pay for that out of pocket, I had to suffer for that and put skin in the game on that. But when you see so many different people coming from so many different places with a common goal, working towards something, and we're all pulling to try to bring this stuff back to our community. Because the first time when I saw this format, I'm like, oh man, when I take this back to the hood, oh, they're gonna eat this up. It's gonna be so great. So I had that in mind, that economic, that entrepreneur, because I wasn't taught. That wasn't something that was taught in school. No one taught that to me. Like you said, I saw the guys in the neighborhood doing the things, some of the wrong things, but that is definitely a springboard. And I'm glad you touched on the part of saying that it's not government's job to go to every single home and format these things for people. I truly learned that, listen, I got to work with Jay. I got to get with some of the other community leaders. We got to do these things to reform things for children and just help people. It's service to many leads to greatness. It's not going to be a thing where the state rep, this is his sole responsibility. It takes a community to build things up. So,
and to that point, true story, prior to 2008, I had no clue what a city council person, a state rep, or any other elected official duties or jobs consisted of. Because my family never seek the guidance or assistance, because we always kind of depended on each other. And that's how I was raised, in a community structure. If folks were short on money, they went to one of the relatives to make up the difference for a utility bill or whatever. When we needed clothing, we went to our cousin's house and we just took a shirt or a pair of jeans.
Well, y'all got a huge family.
We do got a huge family.
Y'all got a huge family. Well, my family not as big as y'all family, but I do remember my mom having to knock on the neighbor's door and ask for this assistance. My grandmother, so.
But that's when so my philosophy is that we, the people, should get back to the basics. And the basics is taking care of our own, teaching our own, raising our own, caring for our own, which means we have to create more doctors, more teachers, more business owners, more stewardess, all these things that will be needed in our community to survive. We have to start training up that next generation to take on that role. I don't intend to retire as an old man in this position, which means I need to start training my replacement. And that's how we should look at life. Every field should be looking for their replacement, because if we're not preparing for that replacement, we're being selfish. And if we're being selfish, we're not allowing our community to grow to its full potential. And that is something that we just can't afford to stifle any longer. We're seeing that what's happening in Washington. And folks are getting so, bent out of shape about the president. And, he's going to do this to us. He's going to do that to us. He has zero power over people.
I didn't even want to bring him up.
No, but it's important that we get back to why we need to take back our control. Because so many folks now depend on government services. If, in fact, he wanted to strip some of those services out of these communities, it would have an effect. So we have to kind of prepare ourselves for that gloomsday or doomsday, if you will, and start doing the work ourselves to ensure that we're able to feed our families, we're able to care for our families medically and all those things that we have to shelter our families. That's the key parts. We have to start investing and putting our money where our mouth is. We talked about this. Folks can go back anecdotally and think about conversations they may have had with someone, and that's how you know if they're true. If you ask someone to do something for you and you say, "Hey Jay, can you host us? Hey Jay, I need you to provide pretzels."
Setting up this meeting.
And being able to show up. That's probably 90% of this game, is showing up and listening and being open to what folks want to offer. Everyone doesn't always call me because they want something from me. Some folks just want me to listen. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be a partner. I'm not trying to be the front of the line marquee. I like to play the backstage hand as long as we get it done. As my man Chris Rock said, you better play the tambourine as well as you do the lead singing.
Outstanding. I want to congratulate you on what you've done, and you're up we got re-election going, right?
I got re-election. May 15th is the primary election in the 179th. So, we always going to be out there advocating for folks, but I serve at the pleasure of the people. So whenever the people are ready for me to retire, I'm sure they will send me a clear message, and I will gladly do so. but I am not ready to retire, which is why I'm running for re-election. And I strongly believe that the team that I've surrounded myself with have been putting in the work, and I'm looking forward to continue the service.
Hey, well, I think, let me again say, if I didn't say already, thank you for what you do. I appreciate what you do. It means a lot. It's motivational for me. I want to use this format as a way to shine light on brothers such as yourself or anybody to come on and just share and because it's so much trash. I see so much nonsense, and I feel like if I'm not part of the solution, I'm part of the problem.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you for what you do for 179th and all the neighborhoods, and continue to do what you do, champion on, and re-election May 15th.
May 15th.
May 15th. Let's get that done. And
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Love you, bro.
Thank you, bro.